Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the Kitchen of Adventure here at the Rustic Fawn Lodge. And today is the first day of June, which means June on the Range is finally here. June on the Range. A fantastic reading event all about reading Western fiction, an event that celebrates the Western. I love Westerns. I've always loved Westerns. And so I created June on the Range a few years ago. I think this is the third June on the Range now. And to my surprise, it's proven fairly popular here on BookTube, which is fantastic. It's wonderful to see other people reading Westerns. And so I thought I would talk today a little bit about some thoughts I have about the Western genre. A genre that used to be enormously popular. Westerns are a huge part of American culture. And they were, like I said, enormously popular for a long, long time. I mean, thousands upon thousands of Westerns were published over the years. You couldn't go to a theater without a Western being shown. I mean, literally every week there were Westerns being shown in the theaters. Westerns were huge, but that is no longer the case. The popularity of Westerns really diminished. By the early 1980s, Westerns were pretty much done as a popular genre. Westerns still exist. Westerns, continue to be made now and again. But if you compare to Westerns now to what they used to be, there's a huge difference. And most people now do not read Westerns ever. And I have heard that there are certain things about Westerns that can make people uncomfortable. There's some problematical things about Westerns that I've heard. So I will talk about a couple of those and my thoughts on those things. So one of the big issues people have, I think, with Westerns now are these: guns. Westerns tend to be full of guns. This is true. Westerns do tend to be full of guns. And there is an idea that Westerns glorify guns. And this is something that should be taken seriously, I think. Now, I am comfortable with guns. I grew up with firearms, and I was shooting guns when I was a child. And so I'm pretty used to them, and like I said, I feel comfortable around them, but I never forget what these are. This is a metal hunk of potential death. This is a curse on all human beings everywhere. This is a weapon so deadly that it makes killing as easy as pointing your finger. And tragically, that makes some people, some poor fools, feel powerful, and has since these were first invented. Last year in the United States, over 42,000 people died as a result of gun violence, almost 43,000 people. There were 656 mass shootings in the United States last year. So, the idea that Westerns glorify guns is one that has to be seriously considered, I think. I don't think that they do. Westerns, by and large, there are exceptions to everything, but Westerns, I believe, are not about guns. Guns are in Westerns because in the time of the Old West, guns were the weapons that people used. But I don't believe that Westerns are about guns any more than sword and sorcery stories are about swords. There are a lot of gunfights in Westerns, if you think back to Westerns on films, usually you think back to a lot of gunfights. But when it comes to cinema, for example, Western movies are mostly gone from cinema. Guns are still there. And I suspect, I haven't counted, but I suspect that Keanu Reeves has shot more people on screen than John Wayne ever did. I don't think Westerns are about guns. Guns are in Westerns. They are a part of Westerns. And the fact that they are a part, bothers a lot of people, understandably considering the problems we have in the United States with gun violence. So I understand that. I just don't think that that's what Westerns are about. Another issue that people have with Westerns is the depiction of Native Americans, how Native Americans have been depicted in Westerns over the years. And there have been pretty stereotypical and racist depictions of Native Americans over the years in Westerns. That is true. Native Americans were a part of the Old West, of course. But the way they have appeared in Western stories has varied, and sometimes it's been pretty bad. I don't think you can blame the Western genre itself for racist depictions of Native Americans. I think you can blame certain writers of Westerns. And if you look back to when Westerns were the most popular, the 1950s probably comes to mind as a decade where Westerns were just hugely popular. And there were tons of Westerns being written. And it was also a time when stereotypical views about Native Americans were pretty commonly accepted. And so, yeah, you got some racist views of Native Americans in Westerns. This is true. Not always. There have been some depictions of Native Americans that have been more accurate. But it depends on who's writing the story. And it's just a fact that back in the 50s, for example, that was a time that was even more racist than now, believe it or not. So yeah, you're going to come across that. It's just like reading old Pulp Fiction. You come across a lot of outdated and unfortunate depictions of different people. I mean, Max Brand was incredibly racist. You read Max Brand, you come across some shocking things. Max Brand was so racist that he makes H.P. Lovecraft look like a member of the NAACP. It's just an unfortunate thing. But this is not something, like I said, that you can blame on the Western genre. You can blame it on certain writers who write Westerns and have written Westerns over the years. And there are, like I said, better depictions of Native Americans in some Westerns. And I think there's been a more accurate and nuanced approach to the depiction of Native Americans in Westerns over time. Westerns, I think, are not about those things. Westerns are about, well, they could be about a bunch of different things. They can be about trying to create a new life for yourself in a place where you have the freedom to be who and what you want to be. Westerns can be about seeking justice in a place with very little law. Westerns can be about survival against a harsh environment and against dangerous people. Westerns very often are about self-reliance. To survive and to thrive in the West, you needed to depend on yourself. Westerns are about a lot of things, and it was they were enormously popular for a very long time. I think for a good reason. I don't think they were able to survive science fiction. And I think that's one of the reasons that by the late 1970s, Star Wars pretty much put an end to Westerns. Because, here was a very flashy, adventurous type of story that took elements of the Westerns and put them in this kind of science fiction kind of story. It's hard for Westerns to compete, I think, against genres like science fiction. And so I think that Westerns have been sidelined. But Westerns, I think these Westerns are just, it's a wonderful genre, I think. Yes, there are things about Westerns that, can make you uncomfortable if you think back, if you only think of those things, If you only think about the violence in crime fiction, for example, you might not like crime fiction. If you might not want to go to an action movie because action movies are full of guns. I mean, there are those things, but that's not what Westerns are about. And I think you will see that if you read a few of them, These are about people. And people living in a particular time and against a particular environment. And like I said, I love them. And I hope that you will join me here for June on the Range and try some Westerns for yourself. Maybe you won't like them, but maybe you will. A lot of people have tried Westerns over the last couple June on the Ranges and have enjoyed them. So give it a try. I love Westerns, and I welcome you to June on the Range. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.